You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for deadly uncle conversations.
We have Emil Starlight all the way from Satina First Nation.
Yes, Emil has experience in the music business. He's got experience with film and video, and he was even on council back in the day. So he tells us a little bit more about that.
It's going to be a wonderful show.
Okay, Danas Ada says Emil Starlight Ata. My name is Emil Starlight. My Sutina name is Mikadik Adze, means red feet or red foot. And I'm from the Sutina Nation. I'm from the Sutina Nation. This is what I was told. I'm from the Sutina Nation when I'm in Calgary. But when I'm with my dad's family, I'm Bush Cree from Edmonton.
That's awesome. So you grew up in the in the Alberta area, in Calgary, in Mokinsis is what they say, right?
Gutsist se. That's what Sutina says.
Oh, yeah, man, this is beautiful. We're already learning. I love that.
Yeah, it's funny because we call it the exact same thing. It just means the elbow.
The elbow.
Okay.
That's where the Elbow River and the other elbow and the bow meet. So
you're a man that's, of many talents. You've been in the art scene, and you've, it's always been a part of your life. And I just wanted to ask you what, steered you towards, that growing up as a teen. And I know that hip hop was a huge influence on you. And, you and your brother had a group for a time. So tell us a little bit about that journey and what led you there.
Well, it's a long story.
That's okay. We got time.
Ever since I was a kid, I've always been into music, like writing songs when I was a little kid with a fake plastic guitar, and then when I was a little older, 16 to 18, I was in a band, lead singer for a band, and I was really like just always into music. I did the acting thing. I went to Toronto to the Center for Indigenous Theater. So I did acting. And it just wasn't for me. The acting thing wasn't my thing. I mean, I love to do it, but it just, it didn't stick like with my brother who's still currently acting. But yeah, I kept coming back to music, no matter where I was in life, no matter where I was in North America. I used to live in Toronto for Center for Indigenous Theater, and I lived and did radio in Whitehorse when I lived up there. So, and it all kept coming back to music, no matter what I did. Music was a big thing for me, and I think I keep cutting out. Give me 1 second here. I think I just have to turn my mic a little bit. My noise is down. My noise gate is on just a little bit strong. But yeah, like I said, I kept coming back to music, and it's funny that the time I didn't know my brother was into hip hop. Because he was in Toronto and I left Toronto for it was supposed to be my third year. I left Toronto to be in Whitehorse. And he started writing music and I started writing music. And this was around 2001, 2002. And yeah, and then we just realized we're both doing hip hop. We weren't even like my brother and I are always really close, but this is one of those things that we never talked about. So I when I left Whitehorse, I performed and recorded my first ever song, and it was called "Leaving the Horse." And yeah, when they started recording, they're like, "Oh, that's gonna be a thing." which I
Mhm.
don't think it ever was. So thank God. Um, so I did that, and then I went home, um, home heartbroken. But like, just my brother was in Toronto doing his thing, and so I started making beats. I started making instrumentals, and my brother came home for Christmas, and that's when we realized we were both doing music, and I was like, what the hell? So then, we're just hanging out with the boys, freestyling, going out, freestyling at parties, freestyling in the car. And then we started to record, and we recorded on like old karaoke, like those old karaoke boxes where it's just two tape decks. And my brother, for Christmas, he got a piano. I think it was like a Korg, or Korg is kind of up there, but I think it was like a Yamaha or something from Walmart. And you were able to just play. So he bought me a drum machine for Christmas, and I played with that, and I programmed it. And then our first tracks were me literally playing. I had to teach myself how to play piano. I never knew how to play it, so I had to play our the instrumental right through for as many bars as I could, and then switch the tape, and then do the next track, the bass, switch the tape, do the horn, switch the tape, the piano. And if I messed up right at the end of a take, I'd have to
You have
scrap
to
that
redo
whole
it.
thing right from the start. So that's how I built our tracks. And then we did 5 songs. I guess now you would call it an EP. And yeah, then we had that, and then I finally, like, eventually, like a year later, got a one of those. I think they're called an EMAC. It was like this. Just looked like an egg. Like, it was just a.
Oh
Oh
yeah, I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
those.
Yeah, yeah. It had no fancy colors like those colored ones, the IMAX, but it
Yeah.
was just an egg called an EMAC. And so that's what I started making our instrumentals on, our recordings, and all that. And yeah, we haven't had. Yeah, Kurt, you were there when I still had the mattresses for a vocal booth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was towards the end. And
I'm only laughing because I've actually seen that done before. I did Project Wild in 2017, and it's a bunch of country artists that went to BC, and they did the same thing in all these rooms. As they used mattresses from the place to build their vocal booths. So yeah,
yeah,
that's the only reason
Yeah.
why I'm laughing, because that's
I mean,
ingenious.
yeah, whatever works, right? And it worked. So it
Yeah,
was like
for
we had a
sure.
we had a like a makeshift vocal booth, and yeah. So then I kind of after that happened and stopped. At the same time, I guess I'll get into it, because there's a lot of people that go down the same path as at the time I didn't realize that I had a problem with alcohol. And so um I thought everything was all good and everything, and just drinking and partying and having a good time, and um but yeah, and my brother, he quit drinking, and but I kept going, and so that kind of I didn't stick with music. I was just too busy partying, and still dabbling a little bit, just being um crazy, and stuff like that. And then so I just kind of started working. I took all the equipment that I had, and so music wasn't a thing anymore at the time. So I got hired by my uncle to do stuff with the language program, and now it's called the Sutina Gunaha House, this Sutina Language House. At the time, it was called Sutina Gunaha Institute, the Tsuut'ina Language Institute. And so I started taking my skills, what I've known from, and I've also been doing like film and video for like since I was like younger than when I was doing music. And so I took the stuff from recording, from video, and I applied it to a lot of the language, the Tsuut'ina language at the time. So I kind of, I don't like to boast, but I could say at the time, I brought the Tsuut'ina language to the digital age. I put it on the internet, the World Wide Web at the time, and there was no other. At the time, this was 2011. There was no other website that had a language. Um, there was no other language website like the one that I built for the Tsuut'ina language at the time, and so it was unique. And these linguists were all like, "Oh, wow, 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 wow!" And so I did that, and then I started working for the nation, switched over to the administration side. I worked for my chief. I was his assistant, and then eventually I got into council in 2014, and I served one term. I was out in 2016, and then I started taking film serious. So I got a camera and lights and stuff like that, and one of my first videos of like official paid video was uh, kind of a documentary out of Onion Lake. I don't know the Cree word for the title, but it was called "They Stand Strong," because at the time during the Transparency Act, when they're trying to get all the First Nations to give up their records, Onion Lake was one of five nations that said no. No, we don't want to do this. And then when I was in council, I remember that came up, and that was my stance is no, we don't have to give them any of our information. Why are we doing this?
Mhm.
So they fought. So they wanted an economic development video, and I said, I kind of, because it was going down this road of like, they're defiant against the government, and I'm like, this needs to be told. Like, you guys already have an economic development video, but this story needs to be told. So I got permission from their administrator and then their chief, and then I talked to different people, talked to the lawyer that helped them fight that, and yeah, so that was back in 2016, 17, and yeah, so it was called "They Stand Strong." I think it's on YouTube still, on their maybe on
Nice,
their
nice.
website page,
I
and
definitely
then
want to check that out. That's amazing.
yeah. And then I've been always been doing like mini like videos and films for the Tsuut'ina Nation, Grey Eagle Hotel Resort, and most recently I've been doing a lot of stuff with Telus Spark. I just did their teepees and telescopes, just a little corporate kind of documentary, not really a doc, but just a corporate video for Telus Spark. And I'm also working with a group called Many Nations One Voice for Wellness, and it's a hip hop R&B kind of infusion about wellness and vaccines, and they talk about the seven teachings. There's humility, um, respect, love. Um, well, the rest are running from my brain right now, but so I did a 360 video for the Telespark Dome, and that is one of two that I did specifically for the dome. We did another video with another film with Telespark called Blackfoot Skies, and we filmed it with a 360 camera. and we were out at Discovery Wildlife, and it was with the Wolf Trail. So we were actually in. They threw us in a cage with the wolf,
Cool.
and they. It was funny because they barred us off with this thing. I thought it was a little electric fence.
Yeah.
The wolf came down, and the trainers were there. With little pieces of like hot dog, giving it to them. Okay, go here, go here, go here. Had the camera set up over there, and at first, when we first got there, like they showed us the cage, and I was like, oh, okay, we could film from here. That's no problem. And then when we got there, our little thing was in the cage, and I was like, "Are you kidding? We're recording in with the wolf." And then they're like, "Oh no, you got this protective thing." And then they told me when we were done that protective fence wasn't even live. It wasn't electrified or nothing. It was just made to look like that, and I was like, "Holy crap!" And I was like,
I want danger pay for that.
the very first thing the wolf did was went up to the camera, sniffed it, and then put it in its mouth. So it was like
Wow, eh?
the first shots, and I was like, "Wow!" So yeah, so
That's
we
a
yeah,
shot
so
you'll
we
never get again.
yeah, so we did that, and so there's only two films made for the dome, uh, and it's a really weird process to edit. Luckily I'm not editing that one because that would have been the one I am currently working on and almost finished will be released in March. Getting everything right in like the dome footage. Um, I only have a screen that's like this big to see. Like I don't have a dome that I can edit with.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, I have to have everything micro like perfect and fitting right and look good. Um, so I'm currently editing that. And then what's funny is the group of individuals, um, the Many Nations One Voice crew, consists of rappers, singers, storytellers, dancers, poets. So I'm watching these artists, these talented artists. Like I'm in the sidelines first, just like they're practicing, they're doing their thing, they're singing, and then they start doing the hip hop that they start rapping, and then all of a sudden I find out that they host ciphers, and they have these like, big cipher nights where just a bunch of rappers are getting together and just freestyling, and I'm just like, wow, just like watching them do their thing. I'm like, holy
That's
crap,
amazing.
I remember doing that, and then I'm like, I kept saying, oh, I'm gonna come, and I never like. It was back in June, May, June that I kept saying I was gonna come, and then finally in November, maybe September, October, and anyways, I finally went, and I, I was so shy because I've never freestyled in front of anybody. I kind of freestyled to myself, but then there was a big group of artists, and they hand me the mic, and I try to hand it off, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, for real? Oh, okay, okay, okay. So whenever I'm put on the spot, I gotta perform no matter what, even if I have nothing to say. I gotta try something. So I
That's
just went
awesome.
with it, and I sat in the cipher and I did it, and people were like, "Wow!" Like him, and like not a lot of people know me. And then it's funny at this one event, this little one of our releases for Blackfoot Skies, which was released at the Globe for like just for the actors and friends and family. One of the actors' friends remembers me from New Tribe magazine way back in 2009, 2008. I don't remember, but it was he's like, are you did you used to have a rap group? Or did you used to rap? I was like, yeah. Your group was the Brothers Grimm. It's like, yeah, that's you. That is you. You guys were on that New Tribe magazine, and I was like, yeah, that was us. He's like, whoa, and he's just this young guy, and he remembers, and he's like, I remember that magazine. He's like, wow, and I seen you at that. I seen that you were at the cipher, and he was like, I usually go to those. I go to this other one, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to that one soon. And so they had another YYC Cipher Club or Cipher Club YYC, and he went there and he was like telling them about me, and so they're like, Emil, you're a celebrity. And I was like, oh yeah, and it was like it was cool because it's cool to get back into it. So now I'm creating. I'm getting back into making beats. I want to do
That's
Nice.
awesome. Who was running that cipher that you went to? Because we interviewed somebody earlier in the season that was talking about something really similar. Dwight
Dwight.
Farrahat.
Oh, Dwight Fairhead. He does Tribal Society, I think.
Oh, okay.
His is on Monday nights, and then
Okay.
there's this artist named Z the Free. She's the I guess the president of YYC Cipher or Cipher Club YYC,
Okay.
and she hosts.
Wow.
They have a Cipher Club every last Wednesday of the month, but
Okay.
this time they're switching it up, and they're gonna have one tomorrow. So I'm gonna go to that one, and so we'll be all over Instagram.
That's awesome.
Hey.
Sounds like
Yeah,
there's a lot of opportunity to get involved in that type of thing where you're at right now
Yeah.
in Calgary.
yeah. It was really small back in the day. There was just my brother and I. Every once in a while, we'd have like artists that grew up here but never claimed to be from Calgary. They were rapping with other groups, saying they're from Edmonton or somewhere else, and because Calgary wasn't back then wasn't a hip hop place. It was Edmonton was the city of the grimy city.
Yeah.
It was the place for hip hop in Alberta was Edmonton.
Hmm.
There was some artists, but there wasn't as many. And oh, my claim to fame for hip hop in Calgary is Dickens Pub. The Brothers Grimm had the first ever hip hop show at Dickens Pub, and then after that, there was a whole bunch of artists. Even D12, Eminem's D12 performed there. A bunch of other artists performed there, and now it's like a venue for they have a lot of hip hop there, and that was like my
That's
claim to
awesome.
fame. I was like, yeah, first ever hip hop at Dickens Pub. So,
It's awesome.
How important do you think it is, like, for the youth to, and especially our young boys, our young men coming up, to have a space to be able to, express themselves through the arts, and also to carry that music on, to keep that creation going.
mhm. Well, of course, it's very important because self expression um, is important. You need to express yourself in some way. I believe you need to express yourself in some way that is personal to you. And I'm not saying you have to get out there and express yourself, but find something that you like to do and go with it. If I'm going to give any kind of like advice to a younger generation, is find something you like to do, go with it. Who cares if other people don't think it's cool? If it's cool to you, it's going to be cool. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, like look at the back. Look, I have like Superman. I don't know if you could see any of my well, you can see my lightsabers up here. All this stuff, Superman, lightsabers, um, Captain America, Ghostbusters, all this back when I was a kid was considered nerdy, considered geeky.
Yeah.
Nobody liked this stuff. Nobody back when I was a kid liked this stuff. But now everybody loves it. There's Comic Cons are like packed. People love them, and people know them, and it's like, oh, I know Iron Man, oh, I know Thor, and it's just like if you find something you're passionate about, stick with it, no matter what. Don't care what other people think. Care about what you think, and just like go with it, because expression is really good medicine. You know.
Yeah.
No, I
So,
totally
I got
agree.
two things going in my head right now from all of that you just said. Sorry. Express Yourself by NWA is rolling in the back of my head right now. And then when you were talking about lightsabers and stuff, it reminded me of Dean, your brother. He used to have this Millennium Falcon when we were kids.
oh,
You know, he got every toy. I never got anything.
Me neither.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was my cousin Derek. You guys know, you guys probably know Derek Starlight. He had
Yeah.
Yeah.
all the he had all the Star Wars toys,
Yeah.
all the He-Man toys. Like,
Sounds like Dean.
Yeah.
yeah, going to his place with your the few figures you have, and
Yeah.
then getting to play with his stuff is like, and he's such a creative guy. Doing playing toys with him, he would create the stories, so you would
Oh
be right
yeah.
in there. And it was like he is so good at telling stories that you just get right into it, and it's just like it's reliving the movies, and it's just like, yeah, I used to love that.
So at these cypers that you go to, do you see a lot of sobriety at these things?
Yeah, well, the one I've just gone to one. I haven't been to any other one. Um, um, but yeah, the last one we were at a like a cafe just in South Calgary. I can't remember the name of the cafe, and there was a like 11-year-old girl with her dad, and her dad was just kind of hanging out, and she was part of the cipher.
Oh, that's
Nice.
So
sweet.
that was really hard because, you know, leaning on curse words, using curse
Yeah.
words as a crutch
Yeah.
is easy to do. But when I seen that kid there, and my older brain, I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
say, I can't curse, I can't do that because there's a kid here. So that was a good challenge for me because it challenged me not to lean on curse words. It challenged
Yeah.
me to think, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And then like specifically say, and try to rhyme what I mean to say without
Yeah.
using curse words.
The reason why I say this is because like a few weeks back, during the holiday season, I sat down. Remember, we used to have Alberta House at Amp Camp there,
Yeah.
where we all got together. But there was a lot of alcohol and a lot of drugs and a lot of stuff there that we were used to, growing up.
Yeah.
But a few weeks back here, I'm sitting with these younger kids, in the same type of situation, but without alcohol or drugs. And these
Wow.
kids are like 17, 18 years old, playing music without any sort of substance. And I just think
Wow.
it's so awesome to see this new generation and what's to come, because our relationship to music as indigenous people is it's healing to us. So isn't that amazing? That's why I asked you that question. Isn't it cool to see the sobriety that we didn't really see? Like a lot of those hip hop ciphers that we had back in the day, there was a lot of drugs and alcohol in the
Yeah.
room. So it's
Well,
just so
and sorry, that's the only way I would perform.
That
yeah.
kind of leads
I
me
would
into
only
my next
perform with
question for you,
sobriety.
Emo.
Yeah.
It's been floating around in my head because I also drank a lot and performed a lot like that, and I don't drink anymore. So going back to this cipher, does it trigger you at all? Because you did say earlier that was a big part of what you did in hip hop was drinking, right? So does that bring back anything to you? Like the first few times when I was playing when I was sober, it was tough, like I had to readjust my mindset. And is that something that you're kind of in the process of doing now that you're creating again, right?
Um, right now, where it is right now, no, it wasn't triggering. But there was a couple of shows my brother and I did for some friends. Um, there was one show we did, I think it was 2010 or 11, and we performed our old songs, and it was like, everybody was drinking, and it was just like,
Yeah.
it was weird. We could still perform, our songs, and but it was kind of like, okay, we're both sober, and it was a little uncomfortable. It was
Yeah.
actually, yeah, Kurt, you were there. I asked you if you had hair gel. My hair was a little rough, and it was at Mount Royal. No, was it at?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I think it was Mount Royal or somewhere. And but yeah, that was weird. And then we did Dresus's Red Winter release. We did two shows with Dresus, and oh no, one for Cowboy Smith, and then a couple like a year later with Dresus. And those ones weren't as bad. Everybody that we used to party and drink with was there, but we weren't partying or drinking. But it was just like, it was like I had no need to drink or anything like that when we did those performances, because it was just like, well, I got to say, I got a strong foundation because I stopped drinking for my wife. A lot of
Mm.
people say they stop drinking for themselves. I can say that, but that won't be honest. In all honesty, I stopped drinking. My wife was already 20 years sober, and when I first met her, it was my brother's and I's very first show in Edmonton, performing in Edmonton at this place called the Fox. And we were asked to come out, and I was still drinking back then. My brother wasn't, and I met my wife, and I was at the bar, and well, if I first seen her, she was DJing, and when I sat down, I first seen her on stage, I was like, "Holy crap! Wow!" And like I was blown away, like from when I seen her, and then we both ended up at the bar at one point. She was getting a Red Bull, and I was getting a beer, and and the bartender was ignoring her, and then I was like, "Hey, she was here first." And then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So she went and asked her order, and I said, "I'll pay for it." And then so I paid for a drink, and then I was like, and I never get the courage to talk to women. I've never had that ability sober. So then I had a couple just to calm the nerves, but I wasn't inebriated. And then I finally kind of got the courage, and I'm like, "So, how's it going?" And then she was like, "Good." And then she kind of walked away. And then I was like, "Oh my God." Like I was like, "Oh, that hurt. That hurt." And I remember going back to the hotel with my brother, and I'm like, "I can't believe that happened." Like the one time I get the nerve to talk to someone I find so beautiful, and then she doesn't say anything. And it was just like, and then my brother was like, don't worry about it. She's, you'll never see her again. And yeah, and 2 years later, we were started talking again, and then 5 years later, we were married. So
Nice.
yeah,
That's
Right on, man.
amazing.
and that's when
That's
that's when
amazing.
I did my thing. I kind of did my thing, saying goodbye to alcohol. I had my last Yahoo um, with friends and family, like all the people I drink with, all the family I drank with. It was like, this is my last time. So after this, I'm done. And it's just one of those things where you say something to yourself and you got to keep that promise. So for
Mm.
me, that's what happened. I was done, and I was done because it was like, okay, that's enough now. It's time to move on to your next step in life. And
Right.
so that's when I decided to quit for my wife.
That's amazing. I did that same thing, but little less, I did it with cigarettes. But I said, once it gets up to $9.25, I'm not spending that kind of money, eh?
My dad did that back when it went to 250 a pack. He's a lot cheaper than you.
So my
No.
partner at the time, we both smoked, and the smokes went up, and I said, I'm not going to buy one. And she said, well, I'm not going to buy any. So we kind of challenged each other at the same time. But yeah, it was the same thing. I just said it to myself. I said, no, I'm not going to do it, and that's kind of how it worked out for me too, as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's with music, I couldn't have both, I couldn't have alcohol and music together. It wasn't working. There was too many times where I almost died, too many uh parties, like bad things happening to women at parties, and you being there, like our names being there, that kind of stuff. And I just had to shut her down. I just knew it wasn't for me, and I had this
Mm.
feeling like I don't have another shot, you know? I
Yeah.
feel like if I fell off, I would probably die. Like, no joke. Like, I think that my life would be a lot shorter than it would be. Or I'd be dead right now for sure if I kept on the way I was, like in my 20s.
Yeah.
100%. And so I had to make that choice, between your true love, and the beast,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. So, but it's,
I love drinking. I just don't do it anymore.
Oh, that's true. That's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Like, not every time was horrible, but definitely the times that, like me getting stabbed, almost crashing, falling off a bridge with my bro Craig First Rider,
Yeah.
like just so many different things where I almost,
Getting home and not remembering how your car got home.
yeah, me and this guy doing
Yeah.
150 down on a road where there's cars on both sides. We spun 3 times in my Camaro, bro. We didn't hit either side of the we just looked at each other. We were facing the other side of the road, and we just laughed. And I was totally drunk driving at the time. Like, wow, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
big lessons.
Nobody likes to talk about that, but yeah, that it was a different time though, right? Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
we grew up, our dads drank and drove. Like
yeah,
both our dads, I know they did because I know both our dads.
yeah,
And I mean, that was just kind of the way it was, like, and it wasn't like you were planning on doing it or whatever. It just happened, right? Like,
yeah. And it was the same thing with me. Like, at the time, I was on the road with Dallas, and just some bad stuff happened when we were at a party, and we got a call from a detective, and then, like, after that, it was like, yeah, I'm done, like, I'm done. I,
Yeah.
I looked at him and I said, I won't have another drop. I'm done. And so we got to Vancouver for our next show, and it was like for the Olympics, and it was this big thing, and they offered us drinks, and it was my first time where I said no, I'm done,
Mhm.
and this was about like 5-6 days after that whole incident had happened. And so it was a shock. It was a shock for both of us, and it kind of started us on our separate paths, and it's
Yeah.
just interesting how alcohol, when you decide, like, not just alcohol, any sort of addiction, when you decide to make that choice, it kind of shows you who you're meant to be around. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, but it's been wild, man, wild times, and we had some fun. Definitely, we met at Amp Camp, and Leon Goose is still a good friend of ours, and a lot of Kira Colson. I just seen her over the
Oh,
weekend,
yeah, nice.
and yeah, so a lot of people are still around that we see from that first amp camp, and I think
Yeah.
those programs are really important. One of the last question we want to leave you with here today, and we want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your story. I think there's a lot of people that can, relate to, something that they love to do within the arts, and maybe 15, 20 years goes by and you find it, again, and that's amazing, to and never give up your love for the arts. I think
Yeah.
that's what that means.
I
But
will die with a guitar in my hand.
yeah, for real. My dad, when he was
Mhm.
like, my dad passed away like last year, and he was still like in his hospital bed. He was looking at me, and I had my guitar, and I was playing him some songs, and he was like he had the motion of like, give me my guitar, get my guitar, I'll play with you. So
Yeah.
it's a part of us right till we go, for sure, our arts. But we want to ask you, how important do you think that it is for every major city across Turtle Island to have a space within our city limits, not on the outskirts, to be able to have our ceremonies, to be able to have funerals, to be able to have wakes, to be able to have, basically like a church, but for Indigenous people? Because a lot of times when we see sweats or wakes or these type of things, it's always outside of the city. But why isn't there a place right inside the city for the people who don't have vehicles, for people who don't have access to make it out to the sweats in the land? We should be able to have sweats, I believe, right in our cities. So what's your opinion on that?
I think my dad, his name's Emil DeRocher. He does sweats for Alberta Hospital, and I don't know if they do or not, that they have a sweat site in at the university there. Or
Really,
some,
that's amazing. And
yeah.
that's in Calgary,
No, that's in Edmonton.
in Edmonton. Oh, that's
Yeah. I
beautiful.
have heard of the sweat at the Alberta hospital before.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's what
no,
they have a few elders, and my dad's he runs one of them,
no,
and
that's amazing.
yeah,
Because a lot of people don't know about these situations, because I think, like, as I've been filming a lot of different churches, like in the major cities, and the $1 million buildings, like it's just crazy to see. And I just hope that we have a place one day where we can have those things, where we can have it open to the public, and
yeah.
find a way. I know it's easy to say, but it's going to be a hard thing to make
I
happen.
remember they used to in Calgary, they had the Friendship Center. I don't know if they have one of those in Edmonton, but I
They
remember
do.
back in
Well,
the day,
since the
Calgary had.
pandemic, like most of those organizations are still recovering, right? Like they
Yeah.
haven't had their doors open for 2 years or whatever. And yeah, but no, I totally agree. And in Red Deer, there is a site, but it's in an industrial area, right? And like the Alberta Hospital is way outside, like it's on the edge of the city, so it would be tough for
Mm,
like some people without transportation to get to. But I mean, it's still there. That's
Yeah.
definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
and that's actually one thing I noticed in Edmonton. Like things are kind of spread out all over the place. Like I remember my aunt, my late aunt, Doreen, got married in Edmonton, and the church that we were at was like catered to First Nations. I don't know the name of the church, but they had like it was like a First Nations church. So they had uh, even I think I'm not sure if I remember, but I think even the stained glass was like First Nations style, and their cross was like made with like sweet grass and sage, and I can't remember where it exactly was, but there was a place like that. There was a church like that that we went to for her wedding, and actually, and yeah, her wake as well, or after the funeral. But yeah, it seems like it's kind of spread out, and it's like, yeah, there should be places, and that's one of the things I want to say about that was, I remember before Enoch took over their hotel, my wife and I smudged in there, and we almost got kicked out. This is when it was a Hilton, and
Oh,
we were like, we're we're like, what do you mean? Like, well, they said they smelled something. I was like, yeah, we were smudging. It was the morning, and we smudge every morning. I was like, isn't this a First Nations hotel? Like, you guys don't know this? And they were like, sir, he's like, no, this is not a First Nations hotel. This is the Hilton. And I was like, whoa, okay. Well, we didn't know that. We're on a First Nation, so I thought that you guys would learn this. But no, he was giving me attitude like I was in the wrong, and like they didn't even want to learn what we were doing.
yeah, that's horrible. Well, I'm glad that Enoch took that back because, especially like on Enoch land, people should definitely, allow that for sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy, crazy stuff. Well, thank you so much, Emil, for being on the podcast today. You're
Yep.
definitely one of the deadly uncles, and this
Oh,
we'll be sending you one of these, or I'll come down and
nice,
I'll hand deliver this to you. But it's called the Deadly Uncle Podcast, and so thank you so much
nice.
for being on today. And you've been a good friend of mine, and that's kind of what this is just to shine the light on our Indigenous men, because there's a lack of programming, and we can't really put the pressure on our women to create those spaces. I think it's important for us as Indigenous men to create those spaces for each other. So thank you so much for being on, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Nice meeting you, Emil.
Yeah, you too.
Have a good one, bro.
Hey, see ya.
Peace. You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for deadly uncle conversations.